start. We are still waiting for Mr. Saviliev and Mr. Ramakrishnan. I hope they will join us then, but time is tight. So welcome to the press conference here within the IAC 2013. Just we left the head of agencies plenary. I hope you joined that. And we were talking about the main topics of this Congress. We were talking about cooperation, about competition, about what these space agencies can do for the benefits of society and of mankind. And just as I heard from the heads here, statements have been made. So I would like just to open the Q&A session for you. Please give us an idea whom you address your question and maybe which media you're representing. There are two volunteers here around with Mike, and so you're welcome to raise your questions.
Sorry, Peter DeSelding, Space News. Two questions, one for Charlie Bolden, one for Mike Ingrid. Mr. Bolden, it was mentioned on the panel that China might be interested in joining the global exploration roadmap. There are already observers there, they're not excluded. You don't set policy, diplomatic policy in the United States, but to your knowledge, is there anything that would, in U.S. policy, that would be against China joining the global exploration roadmap as a full member? And for Mr. Ma, there was a question asked about space debris at the panel, but you did not get a chance to answer. Let me give you a chance to answer now. Does China consider space debris to be an important issue, and what are you doing to mitigate it?
You want me to answer mine first? My understanding is that China is already a member of the IAC, so I will defer to Dr. Ma to respond as to the level of activity or whatever it is. So that is a multinational, multilateral forum, and there is no prohibition against our participating in that. And my understanding is that China is a member already.
我看对全世界来说，对各国的航天局来说，都是一个面临的重大的挑战问题，这个没有什么说的。
For the first question, I think the debris problem for all the world and for other agencies in the world is always a challenging issue for us.
第二个问题，中国对太空垃圾的，第一个我们采取的是怎么能够对运载火箭的末期和失效的卫星进行离轨。 运载火箭末期的钝化和失效卫星离轨，这些实施都必须的。
So for the ways to mitigate this problem, I think for China we are considering two measures. The first one is for the launch vehicles, last stage of launch vehicle. We have to do the deorbiting maneuver, ensure that it will be deorbited after the mission soon. And also for the satellites which has not been using anymore, we are also going to do this deorbiting maneuver.
再一个就是全球要联网进行监测低地轨道这些垃圾。当然，美国它有一个全球的一个观测的体系，那么中国也有一个观测的太空垃圾的体系，然后进行预报预防。
Second, I think we should establish at least a global network to monitor the debris in the lowest orbit. We know the United States has already such kind of a network in operation. China also has a similar system. So this is definitely a necessary way for us to mitigate this problem.
当然了，最终各国航天局也都在考虑怎么能够有效的，或者是能够有能力来清除这些太空垃圾。 这是我们应该着手考虑。中国的国家航天局也在研究考虑这些问题。
I do believe that all the agencies in the world has to consider seriously about this problem on establishing the capabilities and abilities to mitigate the debris, to clear the sky, and also this is also an issue to be considered seriously by the Chinese National Space Administration.
谢谢，三位。
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just come to your questions. I'm sorry, it's a little bit unpolite. I didn't introduce the guests on the panel to you. You know them all, but let me please do that again. Your guests on the panel are Naoki Okamura from JAXA, Japan, General Retired Walter Martinchik from the Canadian Space Agency, Dr. Ma, Chairman of the Chinese Space Agency, General Director of IAC, Jean-Jacques Dardon, and NASA Administrator Charles Bolden. So thank you, and the next question goes to Dave, and then I'll be with you, and then you.
My name is David Todd of Flight Global. I'm asking Dr. Ma, have you finalised your configuration for the Heavy Lift Long March 9 rocket, and have you learnt any lessons from the US SLS rocket system?
Thank you.
第一，中国的重型运载火箭呢，我们正在处于一个所谓的研发的阶段。那么目前还没有叫长征9号或者长征10号，还没有定哪一个型号。
So first question, I think Chinese heavy lift, next generation heavy lift launch vehicle is on the development stage, and there's no name yet, like number 9 or number 10 is not a name, not yet.
第二，中国的重型运载火箭，我们这个也研究过美国的重型运载火箭，但是我们这个方案是在美国发布重型运载火箭的之前我们就提出来这么一个方案。当然，你说是不是有些借鉴呢？这个呢，我相信这个大家都有一个互相借鉴和参考。
And for a second question, we do have research on the latest heavy lift launch vehicle to be designed by the United States. But one fact is that we have released this news about a new heavy lift rocket designing before the release of the news from the United States. But for sure, for space, we do have to learn experiences from each other.
但是还有一点，我们目前的重型运载火箭主体的思路都是全液体，没有固体方案。目前固体作为备份方案，主要方案以液体助推为主的方案。
So one more issue I have to emphasize is that all the launch vehicles for the heavy lift missions are now designed to be liquid propellants. So the solid ones are just for backup.
但是美国的方案从2017年波顿的方案一看，它是以固体助推的第一阶段，第二阶段它到底选固体和液体还没有定下来。
So for the United States, I think for the United States designing issue about the new heavy lift launch vehicle, the first phase is the first stage can be liquid and solid together, and the second stage is not yet decided.
Okay, there's an additional question. Please hand the mic there, and then I come to Mr. Jones.
Yeah. It'll be all liquid boosters as well, no solid boosters.
那么目前我们都是以液体助推的形式，我们也正在研究和研发，看看这个固体助推它的优势、它的劣势，也在考虑这些问题。
Currently, design is also liquid, but we are also studying on the option of using part of the solid, and we are considering the advantage and the disadvantage of this proposal, design.
Thank you very much. Next question is here in the first row, and then I come to you.
Bill Jones from Executive Intelligence Review. I have a question to the Administrator Bolden. I would have asked Mr. Sevaliev also, but he's not here, but perhaps you could give an answer. Last week, Rosatom and Los Alamos signed a series of agreements, one of which included an agreement to cooperate on the planetary defense against things coming in from outer space, asteroids and comets. Are there such agreements either being made now between NASA and Roscosmos? Are there plans in the works to get some kind of agreements with regard to the planetary defense issue?
We don't have any current plans that are in the works as paper agreements, but some of you may know that we have had an internal workshop on our asteroid initiative beginning next week in Houston, Texas, I think the 27th of this month through the 2nd of October, there will be an international all-comers workshop where we will brief many of the 96 alternatives to the asteroid mission that came into us in response to a request for information, if you will. And at least 2 of those to be briefed are international in nature. So I think we're ways away from signing any agreements with anyone on, on the planetary defense side. NASA's job is actually to produce the technology that will enable someone, so it will inform our ability to conduct planetary defense. But that's not the purpose of our asteroid mission.
Other space agencies could say a few words about your plan for the next 20 years, for example, for the climate observations. Thank you.
Okay, it was a bit difficult to understand. Maybe I can bring it again to the podium. The question is there any plan for the next 20 years, you said, to coordinate climate change projects? And Sedona.
Well, I think that, as Charlie was saying, there is a coordination process within the CEOs, and we are contributing obviously to the coordination process. Now, what we are doing on our side, it's the Earth Explorer series, and we are now at 7 Earth Explorers. We have launched 3 of them. The first one will be launched on the 14th of November this year, and we should have the 5th, 6th and 7th are already designed and defined, and they are under development. And we are in the process of selecting the 8th Earth Explorer satellite, all dedicated to climate change. And by the way, we have cooperation with Japan. One of the mission, EarthCare, is in full cooperation with Japan, and we are discussing also with NASA on how we can cooperate on the next Earth Explorer mission, and we have some discussions on that. So cooperation at Space Agency level is well organized. What I would like to mention is that unfortunately the space agencies are not the only players of climate change. We are collecting data for the scientists. Now downstream the data, there is a need for a lot of activities which are not at all related to space agencies. So the coordination should not be only at space agency level. The coordination should be, I would say, even more on the scientific side, because the data will fit the models, and the models will have to be refined according to the data, and so on and so on, meaning that we are only one actor among a long chain of actors, and the coordination process should include the full chain. That is, in my view, very important. You have mentioned the climate change initiative. What we are doing in addition to the data is that we are producing, on request of the scientists, what they call the essential climate variables. And I think that there is 30-something essential climate variable requested by the scientists. And I think that with our 3 Earth Explorers now in orbit, we are already producing around 2/3 of them. So, but the connection with the scientific community is as important as the connection among the space agencies.
I believe that we need a lot of data produced from satellite together to predict how much temperature is going up in the 100 years later. So this means, you see, we need more cooperation within the space world. But also we have to, you see, cooperate with something like the IPCC. Is that right?
The nations with an Arctic territory, that the situation is changing faster than any one of us could have predicted, and that the Canadian Space Agency, in support of all the other government departments, is providing the assets so that we can actually monitor the ice change in the high Arctic, supporting Environment Canada and weather prediction. RadarSat is helping us tremendously with the ice forecasting, but also we have a project on the books called the Polar Communications and Weather Satellite. to assist us. And again, we're looking at over the next 5 to 10 years with that program in an elliptical orbit, the tundra orbit, in order to have constant observation of our weather in the high north, and indeed watch and monitor how quickly it changes. Thank you.
掌握的这些对地观测卫星，特别是极轨的气象卫星地球静止轨道的气象卫星我觉得我们这些数据一定要开放，而且这个数据要给各国家进行使用。其实我们在座的几个，美国也好，欧洲也好，日本也好，加拿大也好，中国也好，特别是美国、欧洲、日本、中国，这都完全具备了低轨道的极轨的气象卫星和静轨的气象卫星。如果我们把这个数据更能加大的交换力度，更大的交流起来，我觉得对于全球的气候变化来说，肯定它监测也好，预测也好，能够对它摸清的规律也好，肯定是很有帮助的。所以我们应该制定这方面的政策，因为这个方面没什么可保密的，就是一个加大开放的政策，这是一个方面。
Position has been very clear. The United States launched LADI on the 6th of September. It's not on its way to the moon yet, but in a few weeks it will be on its way to the moon. The United States is participating with other nations that are launching lunar ventures. So yes, we are at the moon now with LRO, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, that is providing data that helps other nations that want to go. People who want to go there, if you look at the global exploration roadmap, it lays out the possibility and the feasibility for all of us who are spacefaring nations to work cooperatively toward a number of destinations. The moon, asteroids, Mars as the agreed upon ultimate destination for humanity. There are many who are going to help us with our asteroid mission that we're charting for 2025. All nations want to be a part of the effort to get humans to Mars in 2030. And all of us are looking to see what we can do for those nations that do want to go back to the lunar surface. But we have, I have to keep reminding everyone, humanity has been on the lunar surface 6 times. We do need to keep going back, but we've been there 6 times, so we think we know how to do it, and we can help others who want to go there.
Thank you very much, David. And then the next, maybe last question, go to this time.
I've just got 2 questions. General Bolden just said he preferred. General Bolden just said he prefers to go to the asteroids instead of the moon. A recent study suggests that the SLS it would take 2 SLS vehicles to mount a significant mission to the moon. Is it the size of the SLS that's causing that choice of the asteroids instead of the moon?
I can't respond because I'm not aware of the study that you mentioned. The SLS was sized for a mission to Mars and to deep space. And while the moon is not low Earth orbit, it's also not deep space. So we sized the SLS such that we would start with a 70 metric ton vehicle, which is where we are right now, from legacy hardware, dominantly from the shuttle, growing as the technologies come about to a 130 metric ton vehicle that will allow us to take cargo and crew to Mars.
Is there any chance of pushing on to 200 tons? To 200 metric tons?
No, that is not in our plan right now. The SLS for us is a 130 metric ton vehicle, evolving to a 130 metric ton vehicle. And while 200 metric tons may be in the future, it is not in our roadmap right now.
My second question is for Dave. On the subject of cooperation, have you ever considered offering the Vinci engine to the SLS? And also, ExoMars, cooperation didn't really work that well because the Americans had to pull out to some extent from providing the launch vehicle. Do you think that cooperation in that instance was a disappointment?
ExoMars, yes, it was a disappointment, but I must say that when a partner has budget constraints, what can I do? We have also our budget constraints, so we have taken that decision from NASA, and we were talking to our Russian colleagues, and ExoMars will be done again in framework of cooperation between NISA and Roscosmos, but as I said already this afternoon, NASA is not absent of ExoMars. NASA is contributing to ExoMars. That is for ExoMars. For what concerns cooperation on transportation, I have been the promoter since long of cooperation on space transportation for exploration. I have always said that let's cooperate on the tracks. Let's compete on the technology. Let's compete on the on why we are going to Moon, Mars, or asteroid. But let's not compete on transportation because we don't need so many launch vehicles per year. So I have always said that since years. As I said, we have made one step by providing the service module to Orion. And I have always told Charlie that it was only a starting point. I am not considering the service module to Orion as an end in itself, but as a step towards more cooperation on space transportation. So we are discussing on that.
For the Vinci engine might be a good upstate.
Excuse me, we are running a bit out, so maybe you can...
This model, we know that the SpaceX and the other commercial transportation providers, they are making SpaceX and other commercial transportation providers, they are making cheap spaceships and cheap rockets. But we know if you send money, means you have to abandon something, maybe something very important. So I want to know what things are abandoned in your commercial transportation.
What's abandoned?
Yeah.
Well, what was abandoned? I wouldn't say it was abandoned. NASA made a conscious decision. We would change the way that we operated to rely on commercial industry means to get cargo and crew to low Earth orbit destinations. No administration prior to the Obama administration supported that decision. When President Obama came in and I became the NASA administrator, some limited funds have been spent toward cargo transportation, and thus you see SpaceX, they've flown 2 successful launches so far. Orbital had an incredibly successful launch last week on Antares, and tomorrow, if everything goes well, they will birth Cygnus with the International Space Station. So the United States now has, we think, redundant, reliable transportation for cargo. We have 3 American companies now that are working to build a human-rated vehicle that will replace shuttle for transportation. You know, our Russian partners have been tremendous over the last 10 years. We made a conscious decision there that for the foreseeable future, until we had our own internal capability again, we would devote the space shuttle to completion of construction of the International Space Station. Our Russian partners would provide transportation for crews back and forth, and they continue to do that, and they've been very reliable.